Here are the top 10 weapons in Stalker 2. Leave your favorite weapons down in the comments and any changes you might make to this list. The very first weapon that we have is the Kharod. It was pretty hard putting these weapons in order because all 10 of them are pretty dang strong. This is probably the best assault rifle in the game, but the way that this game functions right now, assault rifles are at like the bottom of the list of weapons. SMGs, shotguns, DMRs, I would probably put all of those above assault rifles. SMGs for the most part even have better penetration than most assault rifles, which just makes no sense. But nonetheless, the Kharod is a very solid weapon, one of the best weapons in the game, and a lot of people are going to be mad that it's this low on the list, because it's a lot of people's favorite. Okay, so just before you make any final judgments, stick around for the rest of the weapons I think are better. You can purchase a Kharod from pretty much the best trader in the game. I think this is the best trader at least early to mid game, where during the story you come through the Red Forest, and anytime the story brought me to the Red Forest, I also, on the way, stumbled upon the 2 NPCs at the pile driver. You can talk to these guys, and afterwards, if you come back here, you might have to do another story mission. I just waited a little bit, but once you come back to the pile driver, one of the NPCs will set up shop upstairs, who sells some of the best attachments and weapons in the game. He has the Ram 12 shotgun, I think he has the SAIGA, the Kharod, pretty much anything you really need. If you want a free Kharod, there is a chance for one to spawn on this body in the chasm. There are 2 entrances to the cave, one from the chopper's field and one from the actual chasm. It doesn't matter which one you take. When I got here the first time, there was like 3 different bloodsuckers that just gangbanged the heck out of me. But you'll find a little path in this cave that leads to a scientist's body. What loot he has on him is just luck, but he always has some solid weapons. I think the Rhino Revolver always spawns on him. And then sometimes it's either the Kharod or the like Viper. And funny enough, if you just keep going through the chasm, I think it's chasm, you can find the rubber coating blueprint just down the road in the center of the path. There's a ton of acid here, so just try to avoid it if you can, or bring some heals. Over in Cordon, towards pretty much near the beginning of the game, I guess, you can find the outer checkpoint. This leads you to the Counterweight blueprint. Just watch out for the grenade trap. You can disarm it and take the grenade off on the left-hand side, and then behind the destructible boxes, you will find a stash containing the Counterweight. Possibly the most important thing to find for the Kharod is the extended magazine. You can get this way over on the eastern border of the map over in Zubr-19. You'll find it inside of the fishing pier's little shack, inside of a duffel bag stash. Dnipro Station sells pretty much any attachment you need for this thing: the assault rifle, a silencer, the ACOG scope, and the grenade launcher. And actually, over in raw stock is where you can get a grenade launcher for it as well. If you want to upgrade the Kharod, you will have to go to either Pripyat, the endgame location that lets you really upgrade anything, Dnipro Station over in Dnipro, or Rostock, the location that has the arena. One of my favorite weapons in Stalker 2 is the cluster. It's a unique version of the AR, which has a sniper scope on it that can easily be missed, as it's obtained from an optional objective during a side mission that you only unlock after completing a couple of other side missions. If you already did this mission, you can still get the weapon without having done that optional objective. Just come to the cranes, located over here on the map, over in Zubr-19, the port cranes, and it's located at the northernmost crane in this area. Just climb all the way up to the top and it'll be sitting there underneath the window. If you want to get it the way that the game originally intends you to during the actual mission, you get it during the quest called the 3 Captains. You start this quest at the bar in Soltansk by speaking to Sonia. The Soltansk is the ship located over here on the map. If you speak to Sonia at the bar, she tells you to speak to the Sultan, who is on the other side of the room, and the Sultan will give you the Mysterious Case quest. Complete that and then you'll want to head over to the Shevchenko. The Shevchenko is an entirely different ship just to the southwest of the Soltansk. This is where you can find a guy named Beard who gives you a side quest called Bullseye. If you have completed both of those side quests, the Mysterious Case and Bullseye, you will be able to go back to the Soltansk and speak to Sonia, who will have another side quest for you called the 3 Captains. It doesn't matter what option you go with during this quest, just climb up to the top of the crane, which is marked with an optional objective, the northernmost crane on the map, and pick it up underneath the window. The biggest attachment that you need for this weapon, and really you don't even need it for the clusterfuck, you can use it on any AR in the game. At least the M4, AR 416, whatever it is. But you can get the friggin' drum mag for it from Wisp's stash all the way at the bottom southern portion of the map in Cordon. And this is where you'll find like a knockdown bridge If you head up to the left-hand side, at least if you're coming from the south, it's on the left, and up towards the abandoned train cart where you can find a secret stash containing the drum magazine, or you could call it an extended clip. This is the highest damage an assault rifle will deal in the game, or at least tied with the VS Vintar, but the cluster also has more penetration. It's by far the highest damage per second, which I think means a lot for a semi-auto scoped assault rifle, but with that being said, a big downside to it is that it still takes more than one shot to kill some of the higher armored enemies, including the exoskeleton guys that come in around mid to late game. Like even with armor piercing rounds, those guys still take somewhere around 3 to like 5 or 6 shots in the head in order to take them out. But the biggest downside to this weapon is the repair cost. Yeah, it deals a ton of damage per second for an assault rifle, but it really comes at a cost. This might be the least durable weapon in the game in terms of how quickly its durability goes down with each shot. It is actually insane. It's a money spending machine. Next up is the Texan, a lot of people's favorite shotgun and the unique variant of the Ram shotgun, one of the few unique variants that show a clear increase to its stats versus the regular weapon that it stems from. And again, before you go all crazy about this weapon being so low on this list, just watch the rest, okay? The Texan is amazing. It's strong as heck, but it has its downsides, like the biggest one being clearly the reload speed. It hits hard, but it takes a while to reload, dude. Still a really good shotgun though. One of the best weapons in the game. It one-shots nearly dang anyone, unless you're talking some of the higher armored and health mutants. It'll one-shot the hardest armored human enemies on even veteran difficulty though. The downside being you can't get the Texan Ram shotgun until you get towards Pripyat, just outside of Pripyat, still behind the locked area at these like fortified bunkers where you'll find a couple of pseudo giants hanging out. You can find the Texan lying inside on the table. If you want the ordinary Ram shotgun, the non-unique version that is slightly worse, you can get it from the Red Forest Trader. You can get a free Ram over in Yontar at the southern end of the chasm that stems out of the Chopper's field on that same body that we went over for the Kharod and the Rhino Revolver. It's sort of like random loot on this guy, but he always has some really good weapons. He always has weapons that we went over in this video. Over in Pripyat, you can find the automatic 2-stage gas regulator blueprint in the same building as the Palace of Culture settlement. And then you can get the return mechanism sleeve tightener blueprint over on the western portion of the map at Malachite in the Brain Scorcher. You'll have to climb some ladders to get there. You're climbing onto this like train cart loading area. At the very top is an electric anomaly that you're probably going to get hit by. I don't know if there's a way to get rid of that before you absorb it, but just quickly get rid of the rest of them and traverse through to like the little control booth that controls this thing, where you'll find the blueprint inside of a box. So I said the Kharod might be the best assault rifle, and upon review, I lied. A lot of people have been between the Kharod and the Dnipro. I don't freaking know how to say the name of this gun.
Dnipro. It
looks like the Kharod and the Dnipro do the same or similar damage and penetration, but a lot of people just generally pick the Kharod as the favorite. Well, I'm here to say the Dnipro is just better. I don't know, maybe people are seeing something I don't, but it's better in every single way. They have the same amount of penetration, but the Dnipro deals more damage. I would also go as far to say that the Kharod deals like 30 to 40% less damage, and just in general deals less damage per second to both mutants and armored and unarmored human enemies. The Dnipro also gets an extended magazine and can switch to 7.62 ammo to increase its damage even further. Like if you use the 7.62 against a bloodsucker, it only takes like half of its standard magazine in order to kill it. The regular 5.45 isn't that far behind the 7.62, but with armor piercing rounds on the 7.62, it just deals absolutely crazy damage. On normal difficulty, you can also one-shot the hardest exo enemies with AP rounds. On veteran, it takes like 2 or 3. You can get the Dnipro from the trader at Yaniv Station, or you can get it for free in the Red Forest at the Lishna facility. There are a ton of zombies here, but they're unarmored, so headshots will kill them with pretty much any weapon, but you will eventually find a controller in here too. Those guys are just toast with armor-piercing rounds, so use it on them. A lot of people think that mutants don't need armor-piercing rounds because they don't have armor, but some of them do. Like the controller, for example, I think he has quite a bit of armor on him. There are actually two different magazines that you can get for the Dnipro, one of them being the 45 round extended magazine, the high capacity AKM-74 mag, so it does work for the AK as well. But let's be real, for whatever reason the AKs in this game just suck. You can get it from actually in the lesser zone, southeast of Zalicia, from the Sphere. That like really early location you find during the story. At the northern end of the Sphere is a tunnel that you actually head through in that mission. Head inside of there and grab the magazine from the hidden stash if you haven't already. I actually completely missed this on my first run. The coupled magazine can be found over here in the eastern border of the cooling towers region at this abandoned outpost. The magazine is located inside of a stash in the small brick building. If the stash isn't here for you, you may need to help out an NPC over here behind the cooling tower's flame tornado anomaly, where you get the weird nut from, just behind that anomaly at the pond. And after helping him take out a group of enemies, he will give you that stash location in order for it to spawn. The extra barrel rifling blueprint can be found in Yaniv, southwest of Yaniv Station, and near the tornado anomaly at the conjoined wagons. At the very last cart that is tipped over, you can crouch down or jump up and drop in to find the blueprint lying inside of a stash. The blueprint that changes the ammo to 7.62 that I recommend using is found all the way in Pripyat towards the end of the game, found at the White House. Head inside and sprint through the broken glass anomaly or crouch down to avoid damaging your gear and bleeding, and you'll find it inside of a crate. I believe there was also a bloodsucker in here, so just watch out. The thing about the caliber change is that with 7.62 you deal a lot more damage, where since like I said the AKs don't do much, well I guess the AKs actually use 5.45, so somewhat makes sense in this game's logic, but the ammo for the 7.62 is less frequent. So hands down the best pistol in Stalker 2 is the Rhino. I went over the APSB pistol in my best gear video. That's still the second best pistol in the game, and until you get to mid to late game, it might be the best one. But the Rhino is just insane, man. Like I mentioned, the Gauss rifle being the only non-shotgun weapon that can one-shot the beefy exo guys on veteran difficulty, but the Rhino can do that as well. It's the only pistol that can, and one of the only weapons in general that can. This thing is a small cannon. It hits as hard as some of the hardest snipers and shotguns, except it's a secondary weapon. The only other weapons that are doing this much damage and penetration damage are shotguns, snipers, and the Gauss, which is basically a sniper. You can find a basic Rhino for free at the southern end of the chasm, located in Yaniv. This is also the same place you can find a Kharod, the Vector, I forget exactly what the Vector is called in here, like the Viper 5 I think, and a Ram shotgun. It seems like these might be random spawns when you get here on the body that we're going to loot, so you might not get it, but I have every time. Just watch out for some bloodsuckers here as well, and don't forget, if you skipped past the Kharod section of this video, there was also a blueprint here. The unique version of the Rhino revolver can be found at Yaniv Station at a journalist stash just to the east of the station, but you can only acquire it if you purchase the Ultimate Edition of Stalker 2. If you did, you can come over to the train yard, and near a set of stairs is a train cart with a yellow lock that you can shoot off in order to access the stash that is holding the revolver. Keep in mind, although the unique revolver does the same amount of damage, at least it seems to do the same amount of damage, penetration, and everything as the ordinary Rhino revolver, but it wears down quicker. The Zubr-19 is easily the most underrated weapon in Stalker 2. I could essentially place this as the #1 weapon just out of pure favoritism. It's crazy, the damage to armored enemies, because of its level of penetration. You know, the penetration is the best out of any automatic weapon in Stalker 2, but it also has 0 recoil. No matter what difficulty you're playing on, it only takes a few rounds to really just laser through any enemy in the game, including the super armored up exo guys. So some important things: the unique variant of the Zubr-19, the Rat Killer, that we'll go over how to find in a minute, does almost the same thing as the regular version, except that it uses a different ammo type. A lot of people will think that this doesn't really matter because it doesn't really change the damage, you know, it just affects the scarcity of the ammo, but that is not the case. This affects more than you probably thought. Because yeah, they technically deal the same amount of damage until you switch to something like armor-piercing rounds. So the Zubr-19 uses 9x19 rounds, the Rat Killer, which is the unique variant, uses 9x18. So the unique uses the same ammo as Skiff's pistol now. It seems like a slight change, but armor-piercing rounds can make a giant difference against mutants. So like bloodsuckers, for example, it seems like they take half the amount of shots to kill with the Rat Killer using armor-piercing ammo as the regular version does using armor-piercing. So the ammo cartridge really makes a difference in damage. 9x18 armor-piercing deals more than 9x19 armor-piercing. This might just be the best mutant killing weapon if you use AP rounds. I mean, really, even if you don't. You can get the Zubr-19 by coming over to Lisovi, which is a location that has quite a few really good weapons hiding. This is a location found over in the Yaniv region, towards the top of the map. You'll see a couple of houses here, but if you come to the brick archway that goes downstairs into a basement, you can type in the code 240983 to unlock the door, and lying on the weapon rack you can find a Zubr-19. There's also one over here in the cooling towers. If you come to this location, some NPCs will need some help holding off some other enemies, and on the roof on one of the bodies is the Zubr-19. You can also find SVUs at both of those locations, or you can simply buy the Zubr-19 from the trader in the Red Forest. You know what I think is the best trader in the game, and I think I went over the location for this guy and how to get him to spawn like multiple times in this video. So the unique version of the Zubr, the Rat Killer, can be found at the Dusty Cable Tunnel located in Yaniv. So quite a few things for this weapon are located in Yaniv, but you'll come here during the main mission called an Act of Mercy. It's pretty deep into the game, not like late game, more I don't know, I'd say mid game. But even if you already did go through this mission, you can still come back here and grab the Rat Killer. Just follow the exact path that I go, and you'll find it behind one of those like tribal sacrificial altars. It just takes like a minute to get there. The Rostock and Yaniv technicians will be able to upgrade the Zubr-19 and Rat Killer, but you'll be missing some of the blueprints and attachments for it. In the upper left-hand corner of Yaniv at the Tornado Anomaly where you find the weird bolt, I have a video on all of these artifacts locations, by the way, at least the unique and legendary ones, but you can come here to find the extra barrel rifling blueprint inside of a red crate behind some destructible boxes. Now we can grab the extended magazine for the Zubr and Rat killer. You'll find it at the Witch's Circle in the Red Forest. Head to the center of this circle to find the sacrificial Zubr-19 high capacity extended magazine, just like lying in the middle of this area, which takes our magazine size from 50 to 64. I mean, the magazine on this thing was already freaking crazy, dude. I didn't even talk about that part. This thing's got no recoil, insane penetration, which basically also means high damage, and a gigantic magazine. The only reason this weapon is as low on the list as it is because everything placed above it has the power to one-shot armored enemies. So next we have the M701 Super Sniper Rifle as sort of a bonus to this list. The biggest reason to go with the M701 Super over the SVU is, for one, unless you're using console commands, you cannot get a suppressor or silencer for the SVU as of now. The M701 Super can. And two, excluding shotguns, the only two weapons that can one-shot the harder exoskeleton enemies in the head on veteran difficulty is the M701 Super, the Rhino Revolver, and the Gauss rifle. So it's hard not to put this at the top. The M701 is one of my favorite weapons to use in Stalker 2, also because it has a couple of different unique variants, but we'll also go over the blueprints and the attachments that we need in order to make this as powerful as possible. As for the regular versions of the M701, I went over this previously in another video, but you can get a free M701 from the unit pumping station at the cooling towers region. If you come here and run through the vat of acid that's spread everywhere, you can grab it off of a desk that is sitting next to a stash. The only downside of this though is that it is heavily damaged. You can also purchase the M701 Super from some of the late game traders like Yaniv and I think Pripyat. Here in Pripyat you can find a sniper suppressor attached to an MK1 that is lying on a balcony that also contains an ACOG and a couple of other attachments. I believe this is the only suppressor or silencer you can find for a sniper, the M701 Super, in the game, and it only functions on the M701 and the MK1. If you have found another sniper suppressor in the game, or you're coming from the future where they have updated it and, put another location or allowed traders to start purchasing them, leave it down in the comments. One of the unique versions of the M700 is the Cavalier, and it just might be the most well-hidden weapon in Stalker 2. It's located over in Duga, near the military unit which you originally come to during the main story. If you come here, head through the greenhouse and into the factory brick facility. There might be a horde of rats here ready to swarm you. Swarms of rats are easily taken out by grenades, by the way, but look up towards the ceiling and you can find some yellow painted boards as long as you have the setting toggled on to see the yellow paint. If not, they'll just look like normal boards. Shoot those and the Cavalier sniper will come falling down. The only downside to this weapon is that it has a red dot and I don't think you can replace the scope on it. I don't think it's possible at all. Kind of makes sense since it's a unique variant. It's like the biggest identifying thing about this weapon, but it makes it some fun to use. Just not nearly as accurate, or at least I'm not as accurate with it since it doesn't have a scope. Another unique M701 Super is the Hunter. Sadly, this only comes with your game if you bought the Deluxe or the Ultimate Edition of Stalker 2. But if you did, you can come all the way to Pripyat towards the end of the game, unless you glitch your way into Pripyat. And up towards the roof is the unique sniper, which you can grab after you type in the code 2021. This directly leads to our next weapon, which I think is the best weapon in the game. If you're playing on veteran difficulty, this might just be the #1 weapon, and it's the SAIGA shotgun. Because up here at the top of the building, you can also find the unique variant of the SAIGA shotgun, which isn't wildly better than the original. So if you don't have it, it's not that bad. It just has some cool attachments like the laser on top of the rail. It just looks cooler, but it's not crazy better. I don't even know if it is better. I think the spread might be a little reduced on it, making it slightly better, but not by a whole lot. And this is a weapon you also need the Ultimate Edition for. Okay, so some of you will say the Texan, which is the unique RAM that we went over, is the very best shotgun in Stalker 2. Don't get me wrong, the Texan is great, but the SAIGA is clearly just better. especially if you have the extended or drum mag, because the only thing keeping the Texan from being better is the absurd reload time versus a mag-fed semi-auto shotgun like the SAIGA. The damage per second is incredibly superior. The damage itself is dang near the same. So I get why people's favorite weapon might be the Texan, but it's just a no contest for me on the SAIGA being better. Okay, so enough about the Texan, on to the SAIGA. The SAIGA attachments, the drum mag, the extended mag, and the blueprints. To get it, you have a couple of different options. The easiest being to come all the way up to Yontar, and towards the lower half of it, you will find an unmarked stash with a SAIGA shotgun just lying right next to it. It's really easy to get to. It is just a really random location. At least a random location to have the best weapon in the game just lying here. Well, arguably the best. We'll get to that in a minute though. Another location is from purchasing it from traders. The one that I've gotten it from was the pile driver, that location that we've went through in multiple different videos, and already in this video, the one in the Red Forest. He's got all kinds of sights, optics, suppressors, plus the RAM shotgun. The extended magazine cannot be obtained until you get to Pripyat, but you get it at the Pripyat shopping mall after heading through the front of the building and into the back kitchen area, where you'll find a couple of the burrers, you know, the grand wizards. And after taking those little guys out, you'll find the extended mag on the countertop, which is super easy to miss. You could just walk past this and not even realize it's a thing. And if you're already here, just wait here until we get to our next weapon, because it also has an extended magazine here as well. But the drum mag for the SAIGA is only obtained through the story, after the point of no return, and since there is no New Game Plus, it's just not really possible to use it in the game. You know, the point of no return in Stalker 2 is just like other games. Once you get there, you can't go back into the open world, and you cannot continue after the credits. There's also no New Game Plus. I feel like that you need to add one or the other. Let you continue your save after the game, or give New Game Plus, which I would like better. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but New Game Plus would be sweet. If you're on PC, you can use the UE Tools mod from Nexus, which enables a command line in your game, and then just type this command that I also have in the description for the drum mag. The technician in Yonov can also upgrade the SAIGA 12, as well as the one in Pripyat. Over in the center of Yontar at the Chopper's Field, you can find the choke blueprint in a very well hidden stash found in the passenger side wheel well of a giant truck. There's a big row of these fuel trucks and tractors. You'll find a weird line that kind of sticks out with 3 of them parked beside a few white vans. Just check the wheel well and you'll find the choke blueprint. The rubber stock blueprint cannot be found until after the point of no return as well, at the end of the game, where you can find the rebalanced stock in the sewers of Pripyat during the mission called Down Below. This is a really weird thing to lock behind endgame. This is why I feel like this game was made with the intention of New Game Plus, or being able to continue after the story, and then they had to scrap it out of just rushing the game. I don't know. Last but second to best, we have the SVU. This was originally my #1 weapon in the game until I had a change of heart. I mean, this is basically a sniper, does everything the M701 does, just as strong. One shot headshots anyone from a distance, but also does what the SAIGA shotgun does, because you can just use this thing close range and no scope the heck out of anyone that comes by. Sometimes I prefer this close range to some of the mutants than I do the SAIGA shotgun, just because the recoil isn't as bad. Granted, you can toss slugs onto the SAIGA shotgun, and it is dang near close to a rifle because the recoil on that is almost 0 too, but the SVU is just far superior for a ranged weapon, and possibly just as strong close range. The only downside to this, where I would say maybe the SAIGA could be above the SVU, is the ammo. The rarity of the SVU's ammo and the cost of it just makes it a lot harder to spray someone to death if you need it to close range. That's when it's like, yeah, the SAIGA shotgun's definitely the better close range weapon, but the SVU does both. You can get a decently early SVU if you feel like walking by coming up to Yonov at Lisovy? Probably not how you pronounce that, but feel free to correct me down in the comments. Once you get here, there's like a archway of brick going down to a basement. If you go down there and type in the code 240983, it'll open up the door where you can find a whip, plus a ton of other weapons. There's like the firecracker shotgun, an LMG, plus the Zubr-19, which is like the original variant of the Rat Killer, one of my favorite weapons in the game. Just to the west, you could also go over to the quarry to get it there. It's all the way on top of the crane. I'm not going to show you how to get up there. I've showed it in a couple different videos now, but just head up to the top and you'll find the SVU. There's also a blueprint there. But the very best SVU, and probably the very best unique weapon in general in Stalker 2, is the whip that you get over through the story, or at least the location that you find it at, you get to during the story. Without really spoiling anything, towards the end of your trek through the Red Forest, you'll come to this house. You have a cutscene downstairs, and then once you come up on one of the desks near the window, you can find the whip just laying there. This is probably my favorite weapon in the game, hands down. Like literally the only downside to this is the rarity and the cost of the ammo. The SVU Suppressor has not been found in the game. I don't think it exists in Stalker 2 yet, which is weird, right? It's either they just forgot about it or they decided not to use it, since that's like literally the only thing that the M701 Super Bolt Action Sniper has over the SVU is that you can find a silencer. So maybe they did that in order to kind of balance out the weapons, because the suppressor is in the code. Like if you use console commands, I use the mod UE Tools from Nexus, you can push the little squiggly line on your keyboard to open up the console, and then just type in the command XCreateItemInInventoryByID space RU_SILEN_3011. I'll also leave it down in the description so you can just copy and paste it, but that will add in the suppressor for your SVU. I mean, is it really cheating since you can't really get it in the game anyways? I don't know. The individual adjustment blueprint for the SVU can be found also in the Red Forest, off all the way to the west hand border of it. Right before this broken bridge, you take a left, and over in the far corner, you can find a stash that is extremely easy to miss, containing the blueprint. If you make your way all the way to the end game location of Pripyat, you can head over to the meat, fish, and vegetables location, the rundown supermarket, and all the way in the back, through a locked door, you can find the rubber layer blueprint. And I know the technician in Yaniv and Pripyat at least upgrades the SVU. I don't really remember which other ones. I think the cement factory does too. There is a 20-round magazine that you can add to the SVU that just makes it insane, at least if you have the ammo to spare. But you can't get it until you get all the way to Pripyat towards the end of the game. There is a way to get into Pripyat early. I know one of the methods got patched recently, but if you head into the shopping mall, if you were to go straight and take a left, you would find the SAIGA Extended Mag over on the left-hand side, but instead we're going to take a right and go upstairs, all the way up like 3 flights of steps. Go outside, and if you wander on over around the little stairway that you just came up, you're going to basically do a full circle. And hop into the last window on your right. This is where you can find a safe hidden behind a desk. You would like never find this. I don't know how they expect people to just randomly find these things, but it should give you the 20-round SVU Extended Mag, technically called the High Capacity SVU MKS3 magazine. Next up is the Gauss gun. I love the way that this weapon looks and sounds. It kind of reminds me of like what you would imagine for like a Fallout 1 or Fallout 2 remake for the Gauss rifle in there. I originally had the Gauss down at number 10 on this list, but then I realized it got a buff on the 1.1 update, so I gave it another try. And man, it is really good. I don't know if it's all thanks to that buff in the last update or if I just didn't give it a proper chance before, but I also thought the ammo was extremely hard to come by. But as you progress through the game, it becomes increasingly more common, making it so that the Gauss batteries are almost like the most common ammo at endgame. You can also purchase ammo for the Gauss from Yaniv Station. This is by far the most powerful weapon in Stalker 2. So much so that I'm almost surprised it's such a common weapon towards endgame to where a large amount of enemies are carrying it. It one-shots a Bloodsucker, the Cat, a Poltergeist, and takes 5 shots to take out a Pseudo-Giant. A Pseudo-Giant, dude. Once I started using it more against mutants is when I realized how absolutely dang strong this weapon really is. The only downside to the Gauss gun is that it's a super late game weapon, which makes sense because this would be absolutely overpowered getting this early, which I guess you can get it early since you can get to Pripyat early, plus there's another mission where you can get it earlier than Pripyat as a reward. Now, you can get the Gauss gun earlier than Pripyat by completing the In the Name of Science side mission. I got this thing in like the middle of the game since I did that mission, but it is a long quest. But you also only get that quest if you gave Dr. Sherba the Controller Project documents during the In Search of Past Glory main story mission, which is where you first meet him. Then you need to get a little bit further in the story to finish the Visions of Truth mission, and this is about mid to late game. After the Visions of Truth, you get a radio call from Dr. Sherba asking you to gather a bunch of different callers, and you also have to make sure you say okay to him. So you have to do all of that, and then you get the In the Name of Science side mission, and completing that will give you a Gauss gun. Another way to get the Gauss rifle, arguably more faster since there's ways to get into Pripyat early, but yeah, it's in Pripyat all the way to the northern border of it at the Prometheus movie theater. So yeah, kind of an alien weapon. There's a couple of different ways to get in here. One is to just head to the front towards the double doors on like the front side of the building and just lob grenades at it until it knocks the lock off. And oh yeah, I mentioned that the ammo for it is scarce. If you want to purchase more, you can get it from Dnipro Station. They will usually carry ammo for the Gauss gun. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Don't forget to leave your favorite weapons down in the comments and any weapons you would add to this list.